just a quick bit of bonus content for you today, because one of the big supporters of this channel, Olight, they've got a sale on which wraps up at midnight on Thursday, and there are some substantial discounts if you'd like to take advantage of them. And just to give you a window into just how exciting my life actually is, I'm really G'd up about the re-engineering of my favourite Olight, or at least favourite from the point of view of this is the one I carry every day, and I've been doing it for months now. As you can see, it's losing the battle to retain its black coating by virtue of all of the things it's been to war with in my pocket and elsewhere over the months to, I guess I've been carrying it for about 12 months now. Anyway, once memorably, I booted it while up a ladder. I was actually fitting one of the trolleys to chain block on the beam just up here that holds the roof up, which is the floor above, obviously. And it was sitting on the inner flange of the beam, and I just flicked it and 4 meters down onto the concrete via the bench, and admittedly hitting the bench probably absorbed a little bit of energy on the way down, so that's nice. The thing's rated for 1.5 meters of drop testing, which is kind of, up here to the ground, but more than double the amount of impact energy from way up there, and yet, since then, totally reliable, right? No diminishment of its performance whatsoever. And this is the thing about EDC, right? Everyday carry. It has to be completely dependable. Now, as an engineer, I kind of get off on the design of things that are completely dependable like that. Like when the chips are down, if it's pouring rain and there's been a car crash and somebody needs help, it's no good if you reach in your pocket and nothing, okay? It needs to work, and this is exactly that kind of impressive device that just functions despite the slings and arrows of the treatment I've given it. So it's been re-engineered. This is Warrior Mini 2. This is the new Warrior Mini 3. And as you can see, probably there, I guess, it's slightly shorter. This is 118 millimeters long, this is 111. It's also slightly smaller in diameter. And there's been a bunch of other design changes. In fact, the tail switch is probably the most important piece of redesign, and this might impact other future Olight models as well, because you can see the tail switch on the back of the old one, right? It's different. It's substantially different, much more topographical, I guess. The way this works, Olight's thing is magnets. They're huge on magnets, and it's got this very impressive tail switch recharging arrangement where you find a USB-A outlet somewhere, and that's how you recharge your torch. It finds itself the appropriate orientation. And this does exactly the same thing with the new model, but it's been designed with this nano molding technology, they call it, and what it does is it prevents metal dust, because it's magnetic. It prevents metal dust from getting down there in the groove between the positive and negative poles of the recharging platform. And that's huge, because what I've had to do for the past several months is just get the compressor out. This is not a big deal, but you get the compressor out and you just blow out the metal dust, and any that remains that sort of sucks itself onto the pad at the back here, you just get a bit of gaffer tape and get rid of it. You won't have to do that with this new version because there's no gap for the metal dust to get down into. You could just gaffer it and metal dust away kind of thing. And this is a feedback effect of such a clever recharging thing. The switch also feels a little bit better because you can operate 2 stages of brightness. It's really easy to tell between the 2 stages when you use the switch at the back. So its functionality's been tremendously enhanced, really. And so has the switch on the side here, because instead of being a sort of plasticky rubber switch on the side, as with Mini 2, it's now a bigger, easier to feel metal switch that does exactly the same thing, which is cycle through the various stages of brightness for fine work, sort of up close when you're not under pressure. The Warrior Mini 3 is on sale right now for $90.96, and it's normally about $130. So talking about $39 off kind of thing, and that's a big chunk of cash as a proportion of the price overall. And to me, $90 is a comparatively trivial investment for something, at least for me, that's been so damn useful so often. And obviously a torch is useful in the dark, like really, read my freaking shirt. That's what God said, about that. Anyway, it's not just that though, because you can use it here in the shed, and there's plenty of light in here, right? But you can be down checking the squareness of a blade before you make a critical cut on a piece of, I don't know, steel tube or plate or flat bar or something, right? So you can get your trusty precision 123 block, and you can have it there on the table, blade up here, and you just get your Mighty Warrior Mini 2/3, and you just shine a little bit of light behind the 123 block and see what kind of light leaks out the other side. And that's much better than just sort of eyeballing it a little bit in the dark, in the shadows, whatever, because that can really cheat your perception of whether the blade is square or not. But if you're looking for light leaks, or you might have a straight edge along a piece of flat bar and you're looking for low spots to basically just file down, you can shine a torch behind your precision straight edge, and that's going to give you a really good indication of what's flat and what's not, and if it's not, what needs attention to get it flat, So that's just one example, and obviously you drop your keys in the dark and your phone's flat because you've given it a real belting that day. You need light. It's so useful to have in so many different contexts just like that, but a really useful device. Before I let you go, there's also a couple of knives on sale, and I'll start with the most affordable one. This thing is called a Freeze. It's got a 154 chrome moly blade and aluminium scales, and the scales are the body. It's got a ceramic bearing. 154 chrome moly, if you're not familiar with it, is essentially a perfect material for a heavy-duty all-purpose blade, because it's got good edge retention, it's got good corrosion resistance, and it's got reasonably good toughness as well. It's not going to be really brittle, which is a combination of all of the things you need for a knife that you would use as a utility knife. So if you need to go to war with endless boxes from FedEx and Amazon and things of that nature, this isn't too bad. It's quite pointy though, and I'd have to say the pointy blade is not my first choice, but one of the things I really do like is this blade launching tab here, because if you're up a ladder and you need to cut a piece of nylon strap or a rope or a bit of cable, or you need to go to war with a frickin' zombified cable tie, whatever, then it's really nice not to have to take this hand off the ladder to deploy the blade. That's really safe to do that, right? And much is made of this kind of one-handed opening, and I think actually in Queensland it's illegal to have a knife that you can open one-handed by now. And I think this is just an example of overzealous legislation, because knives are tools. They're basic human tools. They've been around for hundreds of years, and they're generally not for stabbing people. They're generally for getting the frickin' job done, and I wish as a society we could just get that in perspective, okay? End of the sermon on that. A more expensive option, but a more quality product, is this Freeze for titanium. And like, dude, who doesn't like a nice bit of titanium? The scales and the body of this knife are titanium, which is just a beautiful material. It's nice to touch, and it's super lightweight and super tough. And in fact, this part of the body is also the lock for the knife, so it's kind of spring-loaded, and it's also got the tab deployment thing, and a much nicer, at least to my view, drop point, clip point sort of blade with a nice curve on it. So this is a more practical kind of knife, or at least that's how it would seem to me. I know knife choice is quite personal, but the spring-loaded titanium liner sort of lock is really nice. It's not a liner lock, it's actually a body lock, but the lock is not in the liner is what I'm saying. It's actually part of the body. And it's really got good blade retention. In fact, if you're pressing on the lock, you can't deploy the blade. You've got to physically unload the lock to get the blade out, and it's really nice. And it's one of its big party tricks is not only does it come with this sort of clip point blade, but it also comes with an optional Tanto kind of blade as well. Both the blades are chrome moly. You need a T6 wrench to change the blades. It's a 3 fastener deal. You've got to take the thumb tab off and you've got to take the 2 screws out, but you just need a simple T6 wrench and that just unscrews and you screw this one in. And Bob is Mommy's brother on that one. I don't mind the Tanto thing either because it's kind of a cool scraper, and from time to time you need a bit of a scraper, so I think I'll be changing this one out for the scraper Tanto option. Anyway, from the point of view of O knives, there's a couple that I really, really like, and we'll start with probably my favourite, which is Robato 2. It's got a really nice thick blade, and it's also 154 chrome moly, nice gentle curvature on the blade, so good for cutting and not really a pointy stabbing implement because who needs that really? Much more of a versatile tool. And the party trick, the thing that does it for me, the reason I've got another one just up here is you can fold it up one-handed as well. So when you're up a ladder doing whatever you've got to do, not only can you deploy it with the tab for your thumb, but you can also fold it back up one-handed, get it back in your pocket without taking your hand off the frickin' ladder. I love that. It's just a beautiful thing when you can do that. The final knife that I would recommend, particularly if I was a 4x4 dude with a blue singlet and everything on the way to Dingo Piss Creek, is this baby. This is Freeze 2. And I know that freeze this and freeze that, it's all very confusing. Freeze 2, this is a freeze with no number that I just showed you with the point, and this is a freeze for titanium with the interchangeable blades. But if I just wanted one knife for 4x4ing, Freeze 2 would be my choice because the geometry and the feel and the shape of the blade and all of that is just so compatible with the kinds of things that a blue singlet outdoor dude needs a knife to do. For example, getting through 2 straps that are just locked together. You can get through one strap so that the other one can live again. Okay, get through rope, you can pare down a bit of wet firewood to get to the dry wood in the guts of it so that you've got a bit of dry kindling to get the fire started, which is always lovely. And just for all of those sort of jobs that you need to manhandle a knife with, I kind of like these affordable knives because they're not $600 bench-made folders. They're quite affordable and therefore they're a little bit sacrificial. You're not going to cry yourself to sleep if you ruin one by batoning it a little bit hard through a piece of firewood. So, and if you're up the ladder, incidentally, and you're worried about taking both hands off to fold it up, you just unlock it like that, fold it up like that, back in the pocket. I'd suggest on the issue of doing things of this nature one-handed, that slow is smooth and smooth is fast, and what you've got to do is practice in a safe environment, like down here on a bench a few times. Don't do the first practice up the ladder, dude. Get it together down here, and then you'll be comparatively safe when you climb the ladder, and you won't have to take one hand off at all. You'll be much safer, and that'll be just lovely. Anyway, the sale ends at midnight on Thursday, and if you don't have an EDC torch, the Warrior Mini 3 is shaping up to be every bit as durable and practical as the Mini 2, only in a slightly smaller package with exactly the same optical performance, which is kind of why I love it.